All right, welcome. I'm Shannon with Arise, and I first wanted to start out before we get into the Let's Go Digital. I know some people here are probably really familiar with Arise and its history, and others maybe not so much. So I thought I would give a little bit of an introduction. I have been home educating for 15 years. I'm at nearing the very end of the journey. My youngest is just finishing up his high school year. He has just a little bit left that will kind of sneak into this upcoming school year. And then he's off to bigger and better things. And we'll figure out what those are along the way. We're not really quite sure yet for him. My daughter is at university in her third year studying archaeology. And how we got to these places is really quite interesting. Emma and I are the co-founders of Arise, and we began first becoming friends when I moved to Scotland, and that was about 11 years ago. And we became friends because we were in the same co-op community group together, and so blessed by that co-op. It was a Christian group, and from that grew another co-op that dealt with it was a different style of co-op, and we worked hard to create a learning space for secondary age kids because our kids were just coming into those early secondary years, and we wanted a place for them to learn together, to discuss things and that type of environment, and do things that weren't easily done at home by ourselves. So that's what we did, and that kind of grew into that. Co-op is still going 11 years later, and there's been lots of spin-offs from that co-op, so that's exciting to see the multiplication of that here in Scotland. But what grew from that for Emma and I was that we recognized that we had an opportunity to take our kids deeper into exam prep subjects, even though I wasn't quite sure if we were going to sit exams or not here in the UK, but we were able to teach our kids together the same subjects. And we realized that between the two of us, we had a pretty good handle on the core four. So we split the difference, and she taught two classes and I taught two classes. And we carried through that way with just our own kids. And from there, we all hit the COVID years. And Emma and I got the opportunity to hone our online teaching skills. And we did that. And then from that opportunity grew an even bigger opportunity that the Lord placed before us to begin with Arise, offering online classes to secondary aged kids and their families. And so that, in a very short and small nutshell, is how we started. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation bit now. And let's see, making sure that, are you guys able to see the presentation?
Yes, can see it.
Awesome, because I can't see any of you guys now because of the way I entered this into this Zoom room. So we're just going to carry on here, and you guys are all there, and we'll do questions at the end, all right? So what we're doing for parent equipping for this last live session is that we're going to look at the part 2 of the planning, which is Let's Go Digital. So remember, in the first part of the planning, we talked about paper planning. So if you missed that one, go ahead and swing back around and catch that in the replay, that email that I'll send out. So you can see there's Emma and I and our combined things we love, what we learned at university, how many kids we've got, all the important details and that type of thing. So the first question that you might want to ask yourself is, why would you want to go digital with this whole planning thing? And that's a big question to consider. And it's an important one. Just like when we were looking at the paper planning, we talked about who's the plan for, and that really drives what kind of plan you're going to put together. So with this, you need to consider what it is that you want to achieve by going digital, because it has its pluses. And as you can imagine, it also has its negatives and that type of thing. So of course, there's going to be less paper and printer ink. So that's an expense saving, and all the fiddly things of printing different things and that type of stuff. It does actually, from my perspective and from my experience, provide more flexibility if you're home educating, but not at home much. That was a big piece for us in this era. We had long distance trips to London for medical appointments. We had travel that we were doing out of season because it was cheaper then. We had just, even just going for a long journey to go visit a friend, because up here in Scotland, that would be 45 minutes or an hour drive each direction at a minimum. Then, because there were no fellow homeschoolers close to us, so car schooling became something that was doable then because we were more digital. And it also really at this age, and so I'm talking like kids that are like 10, 11, 12, in that age group, it became opportunities for my kids to grow in independence, organizational skills, and their tech skills besides just like playing a video game, some actual useful tools and useful skills. And so that is, those are the top three for me. There's probably others that you can think of, and you're welcome to share those in the chat if you have some others that you uh, are thinking of that maybe didn't make my top three list. So one of the ways I started out doing this, and I'm just going to basically take you on a trip down memory lane. All right. So at this point in our home education career or journey, I was also running a website that still exists, Captivating Compass, which was travel and home education. And so what I decided to do was use the skills I had and, so I built a password protected page. Then you can see down here at the bottom, this was my toolbar. And over here you can see was Academy. And that's where the kids would click. And then that would take them directly to the page that was password protected, that only they knew the password, and they could enter in and get all the links of the different things that they were to engage with. At this point in our education career, we had moved from workbooks, especially when we moved from the US. We moved from workbooks to online PDFs and doing things a little bit more digitally, and that worked really good for us. But the challenge was how to get the kids to access those on their own, keep it going, remember to hit save so they didn't lose their work, and go forward with that. So let me give you just a quick peek at how it started. I'll be honest, it started pretty messy. I took a look at this today and was like, oh goodness. So this is how it started. I had one page, and on this page, what happened, oh, come on, there we go, was everything first for my daughter, and then lower down was for my son. So I put all the links of the things, the resources they were using, and then kept going with a few fun things and different things for different stages. And they would just scroll down and click into whatever they were going to do. And this coupled with that paper planner. So it was a little bit of both, right? So they would gather the links and go to the places here, but then they would account for their work that they had done it on the checklist. If there was something to print and to attach for the week, that's how they would do it. So you can see by the end of a year or two, I forget how long we used it as a single page. They got a lot, they did a lot, and a lot of different things. Sometimes the units were maybe only for a month. That's why there's lots of unit studies there and that type of thing. But for us, this worked really good because this was part of my wheelhouse. This is what I was doing kind of as a side hustle to try to earn some extra income. And so I was putting to practice the skills that I was using for the kids and for our learning, our online learning. So the next page shows you just a little bit different. So how it kind of morphed over, I think probably 2 years. What happened then is that instead of going from one really kind of messy page, I broke it out into different categories. So these two would be where the classes were for the kids, and they would go to their area. And then I also just created areas because this is when Emma and I began that process of online teaching our kids together. So I made places for us to have information that was just specific to our classes that the kids could go and access if they needed to. And then also this was a point where my husband picked up one class with each of the kids to do. And so he had his own special place there for that as well. And so if we click through and just sort of see what does it look like now, my skills improved. And so their information got a little bit more fancy. You can see I have tabs up here. This was Darby's general stuff. And then my classes, Emma's classes, Tim's, resources, the things we were done with, and then a place where, you know what, that was a good idea to start out with, but that's not working out. Let's move it off, but we'll save it for later if we decide to come back to it. So as we clicked through, you'd be able to see the different things and just the little reminders. It was a way for me to communicate with them, yet let them begin working independently and me not having to repeat the same thing every day or every week, because I would be able to say, go to your page, look and see what it says, follow through, let me know if you have any questions, and we'd go from there. So we still would, I'm gonna come back here, we still would go about our regular meeting each day in the morning and our wrap up at midweek and at an end of the week. There was still plenty of personal contact, even though we were using this new way of doing things. And this worked really good for us in those in between early secondary years. It gave them a little bit of tech, but it really secured ways that we were able to point them into the specific places we wanted them to go. But not everybody knows how to build a website or that type of thing. And so you could do the same thing in a Google Doc and it still is really functional. So let me show you just some of the features here of just I literally took that same information, copied it into a Google Doc to show you how easy it is to set it up for a student. You would essentially just create a header feature. You could create a table of contents or the new sidebar feature on the left sidebar. And then just link out, just like on the website, to the various PDFs or different websites that you want them to use, whether those are things stuck on your own hard drive or they're elsewhere. And you can do the same with a spreadsheet, but I like more white space. So a Google Doc works good for me. So you can see here, I put in the table of contents, but that's kind of a little bit old school now because this new feature here takes the information and allows you then to do the same jump to that the table of contents used to do. So that's the same information off Darby's first page, I believe. And just coming, so you can see it works the same way that a web page would have done, but this is this is cleaner and easier for most people, and less techy, if you will. But if you want to go ahead and even make it a project to create a Google site and have your kids do a Google site and you guys work together on these things, that's a good, excellent tech project for kids that are ready for that. So those are just, let's see. Let's go to the next page here. Let's see that one. Let's move on. So why did it work? Did this approach work for us in those early years? So first, it allowed them to begin learning independently. So we would have our morning time and then our time between, like, let's just say 9:30 and 11:30 or 12, sometimes 10 to noon. That was their independent learning that they were meant to go and work on the things as outlined with the links on the different web page or the different places we had them stuck for them. So it also allowed them to use the digital resources, like I said, and to go where we said it was okay on the internet or the drive. So we were able to partition it a little bit and create some safeguards by using site blockers and different things like that. And then just giving them direct links that always stayed the same. They weren't changed. And so that really helped them. It also helped them find their own pace without me hovering. We were at this place of them trying to figure out how to learn to ask for help, because that's an important skill at this point of things. where if they're working on their own and they actually get stuck, they don't just kind of kick out over it, but they actually come and ask for help and say, I've tried, I don't get it, I need some help, can you help me find a resource, or that type of thing. But then also helping them figure out when is the best time of day for them to study. What subjects should they be doing first in the morning when they're the freshest? Probably the most difficult ones and not the easy ones. And so those type of conversations were part of that process of helping them learn how to organize their day with the resources that we had there. And the last one there, it allowed me to delegate some of the tutoring tasks to others and give them a place to share what they wanted with my kids. So that was just that those initial steps of Emma and I tutoring together. These places created a way for us to share the responsibilities of education for both our families and put the resources in a place where the kids could access them, even if we weren't in the same household and that type of thing. So those were just the main two or three things of why it worked for us. As we progressed through those late primary, early secondary years, we began using Google Classroom. And I did a thing where now we had moved from using the website into Google Classroom. And I made that decision because I was beginning to tutor using Google Classroom. And again, it just became an efficiency. My kids were taking some online classes elsewhere and they were using Google Classroom. And I was like, okay, this is a good fit. So they had their other Google Classroom classes, and we created a family homeschool, basically Google Classroom, which is essentially what became the place for, in the paper planner piece, when we were doing the paper planners, and when I was talking about that last week, I talked about how I had them put the planner on the top, and then all the homework they were turning in was binder clipped to that weekly planner, and then I would go through it. This became the replacement of all that paper. So they would turn in, essentially, I made 36 weeks of turn the assignment in here and gave it a date. And that's what they were to do. And this, I had to restore this. So there is nothing in here because it was a restored version. But essentially that was it. They were meant to then turn everything in that was for me or my husband to review to each week. And then, so they kept doing some things on paper. If that was the case, they would scan it or take a picture of it. If it was a workbook or on paper, if it was a digital document, they would submit the digital document and just leave a note like I did page, whatever pages they did that week and that type of thing. And again, that worked really good for us. And it began to move us into a direction where in those earlier years, because it was still middle school, we weren't really focused on the type of grades they were getting. We were focused on mastery and that type of thing. As they moved into those upper secondary years, that where the grade became much more important because we were following the U.S. transcript model, we began by separating things out by subject or by class. So this is the class that my husband was doing with my daughter. And so again, just like a typical Google Classroom, there were instructions in there, things were submitted, and off it went. And so she followed this. She had the book, she had the resources, online resources, and the different things available to her. And so we did that for a couple classes for each of the kids. And they also had other classes from other tutors elsewhere that were kind of following that same model. So you could do the same thing. You could create a Google Classroom for each subject like we did for those upper secondary years, set up assignments, add your kids' names, and give them an email address to use it for. And the beauty of doing this, especially if you're doing this with your oldest, is that then that information you can then replicate when the second student comes into that subject and is ready to start from scratch. You just make a copy, you make a new one, and you add the new student, or you remove a student and add a student. I don't recommend removing though, because then you lose their grades and all the work that they've submitted. So either add a student or copy the class and then add the student. And you're able to do it that way. Or you can do the single Google Classroom like we did early on with the family Google Classroom, and then have various subjects as the topics. So have one topic that's math, one topic that's English, and then under those, you could have the various assignments. And then within that, you could even go and just assign it to a single student. Or if you have two that are in the same topic, doing the same homework, or more than that even, you could then add them as well. So there's lots of flexibility doing it this way. And then the other thing that happens, it's that next step in independence and organization, is that when you're using Google Classrooms, if they have this Gmail account, then they're going to also have a calendar. And then those things then begin popping up on their calendar. So this is what a calendar looks like. And this is an old one. I had to really scroll back a long way to get this to pop up. And it's a little bit grayed out. I hope you can see it okay. So down the left side, you see I have a gazillion classes because that's just how it goes sometimes. But several of these are showing for what they did. They're actually way down here. This shows all the classes I've ever had. All right. So there it is. There's the Latin class. That's the one I'm looking for. So we've got Latin showing up here. You can see the different homework that's due each day. It's not due at a specific time. It's just due on that day. And then you can see, because I have my own personal calendar ticked here, that the other appointments are also popping up. So then you're able to get to see a lay of the land. So if you had a Google Classroom for each of your kids, you'd be able to see their kids, their appointments. It would all come together really neatly with that. So that is just another layer of organization and ability. The other thing that happens, let's go back here. No, back here. So the other thing that happens, just to show you the functionality, it's not just a simple label in there. It actually, when you hover over it, come on, it's going to do it. Maybe it's not. There you go. You have to click on it. It's going to give you the actual assignment, and then you can go and click the link and go straight into the classroom and work within the Google Classroom. So it's really great for helping kids organize how they go about their work within an online platform, if you want them to do that, if they're ready to do that. And it allows you to work with them in that way as well. And even if you're the only one using it this way, to navigate what they're meant to be doing, it's great for the parents to do it as well, if your students aren't quite ready to do it on their own. So here's another calendar, just a different spot in the same calendar, I think. Let's see, I can't remember what it says. Oh, it just showed the difference between, these were her regular assignments due on those days, and then these were the online classes and the times that they were coming up. So this is really similar to what you would see now within, if your kids are doing Arise classes with our Google Classrooms, and you have a Google account for them that's going to integrate all these pieces together. This is similar to what they would see on their student calendar and their student diary there, and then be able to navigate and manage things really well with doing that. So why does and did Google Classroom work for us? It honestly, allows the students who are now teens, truly in that 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old, to take the next step in learning independently, in using digital resources responsibly, and communicating electronically with the teacher. In the beginning, most of those things were still me, but as we moved forward, it became the tutors at different establishments with different classes, whether it was Arise or other places we were taking classes. And then that skill of teaching them how to write proper emails, how to submit things online, how to work appropriately in an online atmosphere that's not just silly and not, just not, as we would say in America, not junior high-ish. And so, and that kind of thing. So really teaching them more than just organizational responsibility, but what are the ethics of working online, just the basic things, and giving them a chance to learn in a safe environment. So it also allowed them to become more responsible for their own schedule and due dates. And, sadly, I'm sure it happens in every family. If it doesn't get done, then sorry, the evening activities or the weekend activities get to be postponed or missed or whatever. And they'll learn real quick that what the reality is about that. But it helps them navigate it because of the due dates and the times. And if there's a reason, there's a legitimate reason that they can't meet a deadline, okay, that's fine. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out and move ahead, change the date, figure out where the problems are at, and adjust appropriately. And again, it allowed me to delegate some of those tutoring tasks to others, and that became more and more, all the way up to while my daughter was at home before she went off to university, doing a sixth form class at University of Highlands and Islands as an access course that was online when she was 16, which is very common these days for students who have finished GCSEs. Maybe they're working toward A levels, maybe they're doing sixth form. They've got all these other things going on, so that she was actually really ready to do that and didn't have any problem with it, even with a new establishment that was much more in the secular world, and mom wasn't at all involved, and or people she knew and that kind of thing. So it was a great foundation and platform that we built for her to be able to do that and for our kids to succeed in that way. And then the last piece, like I said there, that they're ready to learn online from others. And they can go into those secondary years and beyond with confidence. And that's what we want for them for sure. So with that, I want you guys to take a minute and put any questions you might have in the chat. If you are interested still and haven't signed up for the academic coaching, you can still do that. That's going to run for several more weeks. And so you're welcome to pick up the QR code there and schedule that when you are able. And then if you need the QR code or the link, if something's not working right, let me know and I'll drop that in the chat when we finish here. But I just want you to see that when you are setting out this plan, whether you're doing paper for your kids or you're doing a mixture of transitioning from paper to digital, that these are the courses and these are the core four and the different pieces that you can consider. The core four, wherever you're taking them, this is what we offer at Arise. And, no matter where you're taking the classes, the core four is kind of the basic of what you really need to be doing. Maths and English, top rung for those, and then science and social studies, history, geography, that type of thing, to give a real balance. And then more of the interest-led or support enrichment subjects there for this lower secondary. And this type of setup of 4 to 6 or 7 classes is really going to set them up well for the upcoming more rigorous upper secondary, which is here. And that's the GCSE level, whether or not you're choosing to sit the exams or not. It's the age group. It's that 14 to 16 plus that we offer here at Arise. And so you can see the maths, the English, the sciences, the social studies, and then also the electives there, just moving up to that next level with O-level Bible and the art and the languages and all the other pieces that are there. So those are the building blocks for classes, as well as just some ideas and tips and how it worked for us when it comes to doing things digital. There's lots of different ways to do it. There's lots of different platforms that are available. And one of them is like Trello. There's things like Trello or Asana. My son went on to use for his own organizing and planning, started using Obsidian. And he has really enjoyed that because he's been able to take notes and link things. I don't understand Obsidian at all, but he does. And that's the important part. He loves it. So that's what we have for the presentation. I'll take your questions in just a minute. And before I do that, I just want to let you guys know that the next session that we're going to do is going to be pre-recorded. It's a podcast that Emma and I had planned to do for weeks, and we felt like this was the perfect place for it, to let you guys see it and to give us a chance to turn a corner and work on our own classes for Arise, as well as the things for our own families the next 2 weeks. So this one, the challenges of AI in for home educators. And this is the great next step when you're thinking about the digital planning and using digital resources. The next big thing that you will need to confront is this idea of how do you navigate AI as a home educator, and what is going to be your plan for your family and that type of thing. So that's what we'll talk about in that one. And that is the end of what I have to share here. Let me go ahead and stop share.